Have you ever wanted to add flow screens in Lightning components or local actions? Do you want to know some flow tips and tricks? In this video, Jen Lee is discussing flow, which will support your Salesforce learning journey. It's Rachel and Jessica from 100 Days of Trailhead, the place where the tech community comes to learn Salesforce, learn tech, get inspired, have fun, and invest in ourselves. Whether you are brand new to learning Salesforce and starting from the beginning, or mid-career and skilling up for that new opportunity, we are your trail guides here to support you with an itinerary to help you get where you're going. You are in the right place. If you are new to our channel, make sure you hit the like and subscribe buttons. Don't forget to click on the notification bell so you can be notified when we release a new video. In the description below, you can find links on everything we mention in this video, in addition to links we find helpful, like books that have helped us and our friends along our tech and Salesforce journeys. To find other helpful Salesforce and tech content, visit our blog at 100daysoftrailhead.com. In this video, Jen Lee is discussing flow tips and tricks that will assist you in building flows within Lightning components. Jen Lee is 5 times MVP, 8 times Salesforce certified, including application architect, a Salesforce blogger, co-host of Automation Hour, 10 times Trailhead Ranger, Golden Hoodie recipient, Rad Woman alumni, Lightning champion, speaker at Dreamforce, Trailhead DX, Boston, and New York World Tours, Salesforce hosted webinars, Southeast Streamin', Midwest Streamin', Northeast Streamin', and Salesforce user groups. Your quest, should you choose to take it, is to journey with us through the adventure of learning flow. Your quest begins now.
Okay, so a little bit about myself. For those of you who don't know me, I'm a senior Salesforce business consultant at John Hancock. We're an insurance company. I'm a 3-time MVP. I also blog about Salesforce at jenwlee.wordpress.com, where I post a lot of how-tos on Process Builder and Flow, as well as summaries on the upcoming releases. I will be working on the Winter 19 when I come back from Dreamforce. I'm also the co-host of Automation Hour, which we'll talk about towards the end of the deck. I'm currently a 4-time Ranger, working my way to 500 now that Trailhead released new content as of yesterday. I also have the Golden Hoodie. I'm a Rad Woman graduate. I've spoken at multiple Salesforce hosted as well as community hosted events. I'm the social media manager for Women in Tech Diversity. We meet virtually every month, so follow us on Twitter. We're also on the Trailblazer community. And my personal Twitter handle is at JenWlee. So what we're going to cover tonight is Lightning components and flow screens, Lightning components as local actions, and I'm bringing my top 10 flow tips and tricks as well. So top 4 reason why flow matters. It ultimately can replace code, and that could drive down the amount of code that you have in your org. It also allows admins to create process automation and maintain that on their own with no or low code, and remove that dependency on developer resources who have to code and write triggers and all that. And flow is the natural progression from an admin to a developer. A lot of the concepts that you have in code, you have in flow as well. And, it's cool to be a Flownatic. So let's go full HANA. So you want to be a Flownatic. So lightningflow.net, for those of you who don't know, that's the unofficial Flow website that is managed by the Salesforce Process Automation Product Management team. So if you haven't gone out there, I encourage you. There's tips and tricks. There's links to blog. There's all sorts of cool information. The 2 things I'm going to point out that we will use in today's session is the flow screen components as well as the flow local actions. So I included 2 links that go directly to those pages. And they all have example of code that you could install for use in your org, to use in flow screens as well as local actions. So since we're using Lightning components in Flow, there are prerequisites that you need to have in your org. So if you don't have My Domain enabled in your org, you need to enable that, and that's that first screenshot on the top there. And then you also need to go to the Process Automation Settings screen. That's the bottom screenshot highlighted in yellow. You need to enable Lightning Runtime for Flows. And then you could either go and install Lightning components from that Lightning Flow.net site, manage unmanaged packages, or you could develop those Lightning components yourself. So let's talk about Flow Screen components. So Flow Screen components allow you to power up the capabilities of regular Flow screens. So in order to add a Flow Screen component into your Flow, you first need to specify your flow type as a screen flow. It will not work on auto-launch flows. So auto-launch flows are things that you invoke from Process Builder. And your component needs to include the code lightning : available for Flow screens. So that's in the screenshot below of a Lightning component. And then once you have that, when you're in Cloudflow Designer and you're in a Flow screen and you drag into, onto your screen a Lightning component, then you'll be able to select from that list of Lightning components. So Flow Screens was introduced, Flow Screen components was introduced, I believe, in spring 18. Flow Local Actions is recently introduced in summer 18. And again, to use that in Flow, your flow type needs to be a screen flow, and your Lightning component needs to include Lightning : available for flow actions. So that's the example Lightning component that I have in the screenshot below. And one thing to note is if you're using local actions in your flow, it cannot be invoked from a custom button. It needs to be invoked from either a quick action or a utility bar. So we're going to go and walk through a use case, and we're going to build that out. So our challenge here is a customer service rep oftentimes have handled difficult customer situations. And in this case, the customer service rep would like to create a request that will send a gift card to that customer. So we're going to create a flow that collects information to send that gift card request. So we're going to collect the name of the customer and then the dollar amount for the gift card. And with that, we are going to install 3 Lightning components for use. We're going to install a Lookup Lightning component. And for those of you who's worked in Flow Screens, you know that Flow Screens do not have the capability of doing any type of lookup. So all these components, again, are downloaded from that lightningflow.net website. And then we're going to install a local action, show toast. So show toast in Lightning Experience, you see the little message that pops up. It's either a green color or red color, depending on whether it's successful or error message. That's showing a toast message. So we'll install that. And then we're also going to install a local action called Openness Object. And this will allow us to direct the flow to a specific Salesforce record. And then lastly, we're going to add the flow to a utility bar so that it can be invoked in a console app. So our components here are Flow, Lightning App, Lightning Components, and I also created a custom object gift card that basically just holds the customer, the dollar amount, and then the status of the gift card request. So here's the process that we're going to automate. We have the customer service rep who will then select the customer and the gift card amount. Then we'll create the gift card record. Then we'll show a success message that the request was submitted and then we'll take the customer service rep to that newly created gift card record. So here, our first step, we're going to create a flow screen, and then we're going to also pull in that lookup lightning component so that we could select the customer. Then the second step, we're going to do a record create, and that will create that gift card record. Third step, we're going to use the local action show toast, again, to show that success message. And then lastly, we're going to use a local action Openness Object. That will take us to that newly created gift card record. So the screen over to the left is our user interface. That's the screen we're going to configure. We're using the lookup lightning component. We can select the contact, and then there's a dollar amount, and that's going to pull from my gift card dollar amount custom field that has pick list values for the different amounts, 5, 10, 15, 20. And the screenshot over to the right is our completed 4-step flow. All right, we're going to start the demo. I'm going to be daring and actually create this live. Cross your fingers, everyone. All right, so we're in Cloudflow Designer. If those who haven't seen Flow yet, that's a user interface to create flows. And I'm going to create 2 variables. One is to hold the contact ID, and another is to hold the gift card ID. So I like giving my variables standard naming convention. So any of my regular variables, I start with VAR and whatever the item is. And I always like filling out the description field. So here we're going to declare variables as text and private.
Then we can't see your screen.
Okay, you're sharing them.
We can see start demo. We can see start demo, but not your screen.
Uh-oh, hold on. What showed? Now can you see it?
Yes, we can.
Okay, cool. All right, so my variables var contact ID, the data type is text, and I'm making it private. Okay, now create my second variable. So this is the gift card ID. And I'm also going to make that text and private. So private means it's only used within this given flow and not used outside, or anything is sending information in those variables. So I'm going to go into the palette tab and pull in a flow screen. Okay. I'm going to try to pull in a full screen. Okay, there it goes. So I'm going to give this a name, a description. All right, and I'm going to scroll down, and I'm going to allow previous and allow pause. It's really just one screen to information. Right, and then I click on add a field, and I'm going to scroll down and a little lightning component, drag it over, and double click on it. And I already have my lookup component that was installed. And again, I took it off of the lightning flow.net site. I'm going to give this a unique name. I'm going to configure the attributes for the Lightning. So we're going to select name, field label, which field, and output which field value. So here we're going to do a lookup on the contact object. So I'm going to type contact. It's the API name for the object. Field label is what shows for the lookup. So I'm going to say, oops, if I can spell, select a customer. And here in my list, I want to show the contact name. So that's the API name for the full contact name. And when I select it, I want to store the ID contact. Now I'm going to tab over to the outputs, and I'm going to select output value. And so when I select in my Lightning component the name of the contact, it's going to store the ID, and I'm going to take that ID value into my variable contact ID. So now I go back to add a field and drag over the radio button, and this is the dollar amount on the screen. I'm going to double click to configure that. I'm going to call it dollar amount. And I'm going to make the required field. And for this, I am going to select pick list choice. Now, if you selected regular choice, you could manually create pick list values or radio button choices that are only managed within your flow. I'm choosing the pick list choice because I want to pick all the pick list values that are associated to a specific field on an object. Oops. Dollar amount, gift card object. So here I'm going to select, I'm going to start typing my gift card custom object. And then specifically, I want to pull the values dynamically from my dollar field. Let me hit OK here. And OK. And we just configured the screen. Now, our step, we're going to the gift card record. Let's skip the description for now. And we're going to create it on the gift card object. I'm going to end up saying the values of 3 fields on the record. So we have the customer field, the dollar amount field, and I have a success field. So for customer, I'm going to set it to the var contact ID. So that's the ID that was selected on the screen with that lookup component. And then amount, we're going to use screen choice dollar amount. And then I'm going to look at the pick values from that field. And then I'm going to set it to submitted. And then once I create that record ID, I want to store it in a variable. So we're going to type in that var gift card ID. So then I'm going to scroll down, scroll. And then if you have local actions installed in your org, they will automatically appear here in a new section. Otherwise, you won't see that in your flow palette. So drag this over the show toast. And again, we're showing the success message. And here I'm going to set 2 input attributes. And this is the message I'm going to show, and I'm going to show a success message, not an error message. And the tab over here, we're not sending any information outside of this lightning component, so I'm going to delete it. If you don't do it and you try to save this, I'll say you haven't specified an output. And now I'm also going to pull in the Openness Object local action. Newly record. And then this, there's only one input, so this is the S object. So this is the record that we're going to return to, and this will be the what's stored in our variable gift. And I'm going to tab over to outputs. We're not sending anything out of this flow component. We'll cancel that. Okay. Now, double click on the screen flow element to mark that as the starting element of our flow. And that's indicated by that little green circle. And now I'm just going to draw connectors between the steps. So we're going to go from screen to record create to show toast and then Openness Object. I'm going to save it. Give it a name, and I normally give it a description, and then it's a screen flow. Hit OK. That's saving the flow. Thinking. This is just a warning message that shows that basically says your flow needs to run in Lightning runtime. We've already enabled that in our process automation settings, so we're all set. And then you could close it. I think I'm closing it. All right. And once this page refreshes, we're going to activate our flow so we can use it. All right, come on, Salesforce. Okay, so now it's activated. Now I'm going to go into App Manager, and this is where we're going to add the invoke the flow from the utility bar in our console app. So I have Madisons App here, which is a console app, and I'm just going to edit it. All right. I was thinking. Okay. And then click on utility bar, and we're going to add items to it. And now I'm going to click on the flow standard component. And now we're going to set the properties. So I'm going to say request a gift card. This is the link that will show up in the utility bar. And then I'm going to scroll down, and I'm going to pick demo. And that's the flow that we just configured. Okay, that saved it. I'm going to hit back. So now I'm going to go and access Madisons App. Okay, so we see in the utility bar the request a gift card. So we click on that, and that opens up our flow that we just configured. So here I'm going to start typing, and then you see as I'm typing, it finds the items that are close to the match. So it's a type forward lightning component. So I'm going to select Ashley James. And here, so you can do a find, you can fix it, and then you could look at the items here. So that's all done with that lightning component. And then I'm going to select, I'm generous, so I'm going to send her a $20 gift card. Hit next, you see that toast message that just popped up here where the gift card was submitted. And if I close out of the utility bar, now it returned me to that gift card record that was just created. Great. So do we see the presentation?
Yes.
Okay, awesome. Okay, so to recap, what we did was we created a flow screen and brought in the Lookup Lightning component. We did a record create. We showed, we pulled in a local action to show the toast message. And then we also pulled in another local action that opens an S object record. So we're just very high level talk about the lightning component. This flow screen lookup is fairly complex. So it's this lookup FSC component. And what it does is it references another lightning component called lightning lookup. And that lightning component calls an Apex class called lightning lookup controller. And then within that controller, it calls wrapper functions, which in turn calls helper functions. And then that Apex controller really just forms the lookup query in the typing. There are 2 lightning events that are part of this. One of the lightning events does that fast forward typing to come up with the results. And then I had clicked on the drop down to show the results. So that's another lightning event. And then there was one to cancel out whatever I had typed into that drop down. So that's that lightning component. Then here's the local action show toast. So here's the component itself. So we're setting 2 attributes. There's the type, which by default is set to success. So I didn't necessarily have to, in my flow, set the component type to success since it already defaulted that. If you want to show an error, you can do type equals error, and then the message is whatever shows up as that message. Then in the controller itself, it looks at the variable message, gets that from up above, whatever we typed in for the message. And then for the variable type, it also went to the component here and picked up whatever I had set as the type. And then for the controller itself, the method, we have a variable toast event, and that pulls in the lightning event called show toast. That's a base Salesforce out-of-the-box component that we can call, so it's not something custom built. And then within that toast event, it's setting certain parameters. So the message, we've indicated it here, we specified it up above. Type, we've specified it up above. Duration, I'm going to put in quotes, hard-coded this to be 5, and then the mode, we hard-coded it to be dismissible. Now, there are different modes that you can set it for. So dismissible means it remains visible until you click on the close button or the duration has elapsed, whichever comes first. And then there's pester, which doesn't have a close button, and it will just show until the duration it has lapsed, and then it'll just disappear. And then there's sticky, which the message will remain visible until you actually close the message button. So if you want your users to be able to configure duration and mode, you just put it in your design and then add it as attributes to your component. So then at the end, it just fires the toast event. So that's show toast. Now, Openness Object, again, navigates to a specific record. And our component here just asks for the S objects, and it's a string, and we made it required. And then in the controller, we have a variable desktop object, which gets the information from up above here. And then we have an event. Again, it's looking at a base lightning event called navigate to S object. So again, it's something that Salesforce created that you can use. You're not building anything custom. And then in this nav event, we're setting parameters, and it's the record ID that is using the desk object that you pull from up above here. And then it fires that nav event. So that's the S object, Openness Object local action. Now, you can get information on all these base Salesforce provided Lightning components, events, all that in the Lightning Components library. If you haven't used that, it's pretty awesome. It provides documentation or sample code of the various Lightning components, events, things like that. And then the specification tab just goes through and tells you like what type of parameters you can set in the definitions of them. All right, so
Tammy said, loving the flow-enabled Lightning components. What a great resource.
I know, right? All right, so now my top 10 flows, tips, and tricks. So when you create a flow, do keep in mind that if you have things like record creates or deletes or updates, your running user needs to have the CRUD permissions to that object, or else your flow's not going to work. So you have to think about whether that user has that access in your profile. If they don't, you might consider granting them access via a permission set. Number 2, before you go and build things out in Cloudflow Designer, I recommend that you draw it out first, especially something highly complex like the screenshot there. That's one of my most complex flows that I created, and I really went through, here's all the steps I need, here's all the criteria and situations, and here's what happens to each. So I really spelled it out. There was a lot of erasing, right? And ultimately I used what I had documented to do my unit testing after I configured my flow. To me, it's easier to erase and draw and do all sorts of stuff than if you went into Salesforce and configured it, and then now you had to go back and refactor it. And then you also visually can get consensus from your business partner. Have you covered all your bases? So you do want to cover the happy path and the exception path as well. Now, stating the obvious, don't build your flow directly in prod, even though you can, because you don't want to accidentally change production data. So definitely test in a sandbox first before moving it up. And save often, save very often. Cloudflow Designer does not have autosave capabilities. So if you went and configured a really complex flow and you never saved it and you accidentally closed out of Cloudflow Designer, which I personally have done myself, then you're gonna have to go back and redo it. So keep clicking on that save every so often. And since you all aspire to be developers or are developers, this was more geared towards admins, I guess. Think like a developer, safeguard your flow from faulting. So when you're doing things like record or fast lookup, you want to check the box for assign null values if nothing's found. If your flow is looking to do something with a field and that field is optional on the page, then you definitely want to check that the field is not null before you go ahead and do something else with it. So 6, leading into that, perform null checks. You cannot have enough decision elements. And again, this is to prevent your flow from faulting. So in this example here, we did a record lookup, fast lookup in the previous step. So I have an object collection variable, and I want to make sure that it has at least one record in that collection. So that's why you have the object collection bar product ID is null, false, 2 negatives equals a positive, so at least it has one record. And then you want to do that check before you continue on doing updates to it or doing deletions or creations of that. 7, never hard code ID references. Use things like custom labels, custom metadata types, custom settings. I included a link to my blog post about it. The reason why you don't want to hard code an ID is, especially if the thing you're referencing is newly created in your sandbox, is when you go and move it higher up in whatever sandbox strategy you have in your org, that ID will never be the same. So if you start in your sandbox and you reference something, and then when you move it up to your QA environment to production, you're going to then need to go into that flow, create another version, reference whatever the ID is that you're referencing. So now in all your different environments, you have different versions of that same flow. So where possible, you can reference the custom label, custom metadata type, custom setting, or do a lookup using the record API name, because most likely your API name won't change, right? To do a lookup to get the ID and then reference it. So there's 2 things: either use custom label, custom metadata type, custom settings, or do a record lookup to get the ID. 8, want to make sure that any users who are using Flow have the run Flow system permissions, or else when they try to run it, they'll get an insufficient privilege error message. 9, use fault elements. So in my sample there, I purposely did not use fault connectors because I wanted to keep my example clean. But in real life, for any DML actions, a record lookup, create, delete, and update, and the fast equivalents, I do have fault connectors that go to a flow, and here I pulled in, it's a subflow that I pulled in. So I have a separate flow that looks at the flow error message and then sends an email to our production support team. So we bring it in as a subflow into each flow, so we're only managing that one flow on its own, and then we're just leveraging it where we need to. So basically we drag it into all our flows. So the regular line is the regular connector, and you can draw the fault one as your second line. So I included blog post links on how to configure the path to send an email and also to customize the error message. And lastly, when you are deploying flows in a chain set, they appear under the category flow definition. And when they deploy, they will deploy to your sandbox or production inactive. Now, with Winter 19, there is a new feature where you could enable your flows and processes to deploy active. However, you will need to write test classes for that. So you do have that option, but if you're an admin, you might not have the ability to write test classes, and you need to go over to your developer friend for that. So Dreamforce, a couple weeks away. I will be speaking in 4 sessions. On Wednesday, I'll be featuring a John Hancock long-term care portal implementation where we use flows and lightning components alongside with our system integration partner Encapsulate. So they built a pretty complex flow. It's a pretty scary flow, but we're really excited to be demoing that piece. And then I have 2 sessions on no excuses. Today is the day you learn flow. So it's really talking through beginner flow basics and what you can do with flow. And lastly, on Friday, I'm teaming up with Shel Feldman and Stuart McNaught on Review Your Inner Trailblazer with Custom Metadata Types. And we'll go through what custom metadata types are and the various use cases for custom metadata types using flow validation rules and with Winter 19 formulas. So if you could fit those in your agenda builder, it would be cool to see you all there. And I talked about Automation Hour really quick. I co-host that with 2 other MVPs, Rakesh Gupta, who is the automation champion, and David Litton. All 3 of us have blogs on process automation. We try to meet every other Friday, 3 to 4 p.m. Eastern. It's a free webinar series, and either we will present or we have guest presenters who will present use cases and process automation solutions. So a lot of times it will cover flow solutions, different skill sets. So if you haven't heard of us and want to check out our previous recordings, they are on our YouTube channel, and you could get to that via bit.ly/Automation Hour videos. We also have a Trailblazer community, Salesforce Automation Hour, as well as a website, automationhour.com. And we are booked out for the rest of the year with community members as well as several MVPs. So we're excited for that. So you can go to automationhour.com and register for them. And if you can't join us live, we will send a link to the recording and deck after the fact. And I also wanted to give some Flow resources. Again, I'm providing the link here to the unofficial Flow website, the lightningflow.net. There's also a trail mix on getting started with Flow, as well as various Trailhead modules and projects. There are Trailblazer communities for posting as you're working on your Flow and you need additional help. And I included links to my blog as well as Rakesh and David's. If you're looking to learn more about loops and flows, Pete Feit did a really good automation hour on introduction to loops as well. So with that, you can now level up your Flownatic powers with Lightning components and flow screens as local actions. And then you also have my top 10 flows, tips, and tricks. And with that, that's it. Any questions?
We have a few comments. I have from Melissa Shucks, similar to Null Checks with Process Builder, and Andy said, and Apex. And Nadine said, Null Check everything. Any questions, folks? Come on, don't be shy. You're never shy.
So Alex said, awesome presentation, Jen.
Oh, thank you.
We normally are full of questions. Come on, lady.
Okay. I have a question. Hold on.
Question?
Yeah, I saw it.
Okay,
Well,
so will flow local actions work if the org is still in class?
Oh, that's a good one.
yes, as long as you turn on the run local, the lightning runtime, whatever that feature was on the process automation screen.
Anything else? So quiet.
There's some more.
Okay.
So Samantha asked, you mentioned that the flow you created was designed to be run in the utility bar in the console app. Will it also work in a utility bar in a standard app?
In the standard, I thought utility bars only show up in console apps. I didn't know that there was a way to configure utility bars in a standard one.
Olivia Davis said that she has one in a standard app.
Okay.
Nancy said, thanks for the session. Great introduction about using components. Can I use fast lookup or record create and pass record ID when invoking the flow?
I'm sorry, you broke up there, Rachel.
It says, can I use fast lookup or record create and pass record ID when invoking the flow?
In passive, yes.
Okay. Melissa said they show up in all apps apparently. And let's see, hold on. And then Tammy went and said, how well does the lookup component work in a large data org like 7 million records in a lookup object?
Good luck.
Awesome. Okay, Andy, early on in the presentation, you said the flow is only launchable from utility bar and quick actions. I'm assuming you're talking about screen flows. Is it possible to launch a screen flow from a URL and from other flow?
So I was mainly talking about a flow with local actions. There is, I did try to invoke it from a custom button and was not able to. I pulled in one of the process automation engineers from Salesforce, and they explained to me that it's some type of like lightning component wrapper, and you only could do it from the utility bar or a quick action. So we weren't able to get the local actions to work anytime I invoked it from just a custom button as a URL.
Great questions. Keep them coming.
Yes.
Melissa said, great session, half the jump.
Nancy said, thank you. Anything else, guys? All right. Oh.
No more questions?
Yeah. All right. Okay.
Well, thank you.
Oh,
Jen,
oh my God, that was so fantastic. Okay, hold on. Where's the Brady Bunch view? Where's the Brady Bunch view?
I don't know. Oh, wait.
Okay, wait. Andy said, how much is the inclusion of Lightning components going to impact the necessity of looping through records to pull cross-object software?
I don't know the answer to that.
Does anybody else
Have an idea?
Anybody have an idea? Okay, Andy, sorry, we're going to have to table that one.
Yeah, maybe we'll put it in the community and we'll, try to figure out if we can answer that.
One thing to note about the flow screen components is in Winter 19, there are now out of the box flow screen components. And I think as there are more releases, Salesforce will start bringing in more components like local actions and things like that at native into Flow, so you don't have to install it.
All right. Okay. Right, so okay. So I can't find the Brady Bunch view, but Jennifer Lee, she was awesome. Woo! Yes. You killed it, girl. You killed it. Thank you so much.
And with that, we're at the end. Have you ever wanted to create a flow and didn't know where to start? Which one of Jen's tips or tricks helped you the most? Do you have a flow tip you want to share? What would you like to see in future videos? Comment below. We would love to hear your thoughts in the comments. If you've made it to this point, we want to take an opportunity to say thank you. Since you stayed with us, here is a bonus. Jen's flow in this presentation is in Cloud Flow Designer and not Flow Builder. There are many more features since then, so if you haven't checked it out, check out Flow Builder. Thank you for spending time with us. Make sure you like this video. It helps a lot. Click subscribe and on the notification bell so you never miss another video. We also handpick these videos, which we recommend you watch next. You can talk to us on Instagram, Twitter, and on our website at 100daysoftrailhead.com, all of which are listed below. Thank you for learning with us, and we'll see you back tomorrow.